Ascendancy combo. Hoogland number 5 here on our Season 1 leaderboard for 2015. He did have 2 buys coming into the tournament, but for him, he wants to get some Open Series points to be number 1, because if he wins, as far as the points for Season 1, he's qualified for the Players' Championship again.
And I think all of those players are looking to come back based on the experience they had in the tournament and their reaction to everything. I think everyone's trying to queue. I mean, you already see Stephen Mann and Logan Mize flying out to events week 1. Jill Lissette as well.
To commune with the gods. Take a look at the top couple of cards here. Nylea's Presence, Dragon's Mantle among them, and Sylvan Caryatid. Maybe the most important card of this particular deck is the card that will be selected by Speck.
It's by a mile the most important card. I mean, when this deck has an uncontested Caryatid, it's very likely to win. When it fails to draw Caryatid and has to try to go off with something like Kiora's Followers or Rattleclaw Mystic, I think the deck is much, much less powerful.
Jeff going to play a copy of Caryatid after it looks like he's attacking for 1 point of damage. Wooded Foothills will be sacrificed. There's a mountain. That'll be his turn. Speck will draw a card. And we haven't seen this deck for a little while, so you do wonder if Jeff knows what he's up against here. As now there is a copy of Mystic Monastery, though the cat might be out of the bag now.
Defiant Strike, Dragon's Mantle, the lands that Steven's played so far, I think Jeff knows what's up.
Jeff going to take a look at the graveyard. You see the Defiant Strike, Nylea's Presence, the Dragon Mantle, Commune, and a land. Not a lot of decks have this combination of cards in them.
Yeah.
Now, you don't know if it's maybe the Meletis Astronomer build that we saw Matt Nass play at the Season 4 Invitational in Seattle, or if it's just a regular build, which we know, given the access to deck list, that Speck is playing. But Jeff has to be aware now that, okay, I'm up against someone who's not really trying to do something fair, and Jeff's going to try to get unfair and try to kill his opponent quickly with a Stormbreath Dragon.
All right, well, hope you get to untap.
Yeah, that's the test.
Yeah, no guarantee.
5 cards in the graveyard. Perhaps Speck has something like a Dig Through Time or a Treasure Cruise. We'll see, as he's already reaching for mana. And it looks like it may be a Cruise. He also does have a copy of Jeskai Ascendancy in his hand. So how does he want to move forward here is the question. Looks like he's going to take a point of damage to start. And there is Ascendancy. So the cat is certainly out of the bag now if it wasn't before. Battlefield Forge going to come into play. And how much can Steven Speck do on this turn?
I mean, his hand's pretty flush.
Jeff going to draw.
But it looks like Steven just trying to go for it next turn with a ton of mana. So relatively safe play because most of these teamer decks cannot get an enchantment off the table game 1.
That's just a hole in their armor.
Yeah, I mean, he has Stubborn Denial to counter it preemptively, but once it's in play, it's here. And at 14 life, it's very unlikely that Jeff can kill him.
Oh, in we go. Those are the beatdowns. But doesn't have enough mana to Monstrosity at this point. So he's just going to play Hair of the Wild and pass the turn back. And can Speck get the job done? Sitting at 10, you do have to wonder if he thinks he's going to get another turn here, though Twin Flame may have been a very, very important draw for him, giving him the ability to make perhaps another copy of Sylvan Caryatid, and there is Twin Flame, so now it's going to be showtime. Brace for impact and a whole bunch of triggers. Jeff's going to take a look at Twin Flame, and you can see it there. Strive doesn't matter in this instance. Choose any number of target creatures you control. In this case, it is Sylvan Caryatid. For each of them, put a token that's a copy of that creature onto the battlefield. Those tokens have haste. Exile them at the beginning of your next end step, so 2 Caryatids in play.
And the significance of this means now that all 1-mana spells that Steven casts generate mana. All 2-mana spells are mana neutral. He's going to get to do a lot of looting as well, so it's a very good spot for him to be in.
Yeah, it is certainly showtime. Kiora's Follow will be the first discard there to the Jeskai Ascendancy trigger. Now Twin Flame will resolve. Here comes the token. Again, that is a copy of Sylvan Caryatid that does have haste. Now, it is a defender, so it can't attack, but that's okay, because all he wants right now is mana. So here we go, a little Defiant Strike action. Generate some mana. Jeskai Ascendancy, a little pump up. See if he wants to loot here. And he will. Again, because Ascendancy has so many lines of text, you have to be a little careful with how you do things. Now, Defiant Strike, of course, will draw a card since it does cantrip. But he's generating a little bit of mana as he goes.
And still has Treasure Cruise in hand as well, so he's going to take a ton of looks at cards. He has multiple copies of Divination as well.
Nylea's Presence will be a free one in this instance. 2-mana spell, those are mana neutral, as you did mention.
Very hard to imagine Steven's not going to be able to draw his entire deck here.
Jeskai Ascendancy is another card that he's picked up. There you do see the Presence. Whenever it enters the battlefield, you draw a card, and each land is enchanted land is every basic land type in addition to its other types, so it gets to tap for any color. And there's another copy of Ascendancy. Now we're having a lot of fun.
I felt like we were having a fair bit of fun before.
The discard there's a Rattleclaw Mystic. He's going to go even deeper. Now it's a Treasure Cruise. Going to delve some cards, of course, make it super cheap. Trigger Ascendancy a couple of times, add some mana, do this again. He's working his way towards infinite mana is probably not correct, but quite a bit.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be infinite to be more than enough to find the kill here.
Yeah. So a couple of cards will get discarded.
Not a good sign when your opponent's discarding Defiant Strike in this spot.
Yeah, probably not the best feeling. Cruise is going to resolve here in just a moment. Jeff taking a look at the graveyard, seeing what's down there, seeing what he has to worry about, seeing what was delved away. Makes you think that he may have something in his hand at this point.
If he has Stubborn Denial, I guess the question he's asking right now is, can I just stop him here if this Treasure Cruise doesn't resolve? Or does he have the type of deck where there's only one win condition and I can sit on my one counterspell and beat him that way?
And he actually does have Stubborn Denial in his hand right now.
And I think Jeff's probably hoping to bank on the fact that Steven just cannot beat a counterspell this game or gets sloppy about it.
Now, the way that he does win the game, oddly enough, taking a look at the deck list, he does have a Burning Anger, and that might be the only way that he can win. And perhaps he can get a little creative with something like a Twin Flame on a creature and then give that creature haste and play enough spells, but Jeff's thought process of maybe I'm just going to hold this Stubborn Denial forever because he does have Ferocious to the Stormbreath Dragon, might be able to actually get the job done.
Well, the other element of it is once your opponent's in a position where he's discarding Defiant Strike, which is so efficient in this spot. I mean, it generates mana. Most likely what's left over in Steven's hand is so good that even if you counter the Treasure Cruise, he's going to be able to keep going. So even if Jeff doesn't know for sure whether or not Steven can beat a counterspell, it's worth rolling the dice here because there's no point in stopping the Treasure Cruise. Steven's going to just keep going.
And here's another divination. Now, one thing to keep in mind, too, when doing this, of course, is, Steven is going off. That's what this is called Magic. He's got his combo deck. He's doing his thing. He is currently going off. But one thing that combo players do on occasion is sometimes they get sloppy in instances like this because, my opponents just give me the green light to do whatever I want. Sure, I'll just do it like I'm goldfishing my bedroom. And that's not the same thing.
I mean, Steven's operations have been smooth so far. He's keeping track of all his triggers and doing all that stuff, but there's just a lot going on. So you might as well make him play it out.
And there's Kior's Follower. Now here's some mana that's going to be tapped, so it looks like perhaps another Kior's Flower. And it does make you wonder how much mana does he have floating in this instance? Is he just going to pass the turn back? Who knows? Again, you see all those dice on those Jeskai Ascendancies. It probably represents how big the creatures are, perhaps how much mana is floating, but now here's a Twin Flame.
I think the plan here is for Steven to Twin Flame, generate a bunch of Kior's Followers that can attack this turn, then continue to go off and try to kill Jeff that way.
And you see the Twin Flame has been strived.
And Steven has enough resources left over and another Twin Flame in hand that even if Jeff counters this, he can then just keep going.
Sure. So these are going to untap, generate some mana, of course, since it is a spell. But so much mana being generated with 2 Ascendancies in play and then the 2 Caryatids, and every spell is either going to be neutral or plus mana. And actually all of them are going to be plus mana since there's 2 Ascendancies in play. So he gets to have an absolute blast. He'll draw and discard.
The followers are also mana if he wants. The tokens of followers are also mana if he wants it to be. So he's got an unlimited supply of mana in essence.
Yep. So you see all those dice there for the power and toughness of Sylvan Caryatid. And then the 2 dice that are on the Kior's Followers are for them getting each +2/+2 to the Ascendancy triggers once Twin Flame was cast.
Yeah.
So clarification is key in these instances. The Jeskai Ascendancy is a rather complicated card.
Right. Put it another way, if Steven loses this game somehow, it will not be due to a lack of mana. Something else will have had to have happened for that to be the case.
Absolutely. No doubt about that. But again, this is a situation where, if you're familiar with Teamer, you don't have to play around too much. Stubborn Denial is a card, maybe a card like Lightning Strike, something like that, some sort of burn spell, but you don't have to worry about too much in this situation. You just have to make sure that you, as the Ascendancy player, don't screw up.
Yep. And I appreciate what Jeff's doing here. It's make Steven play this out, sit on your Stubborn Denial, hoping he gets sloppy, or maybe his deck is constructed in such a way that he can't beat a counterspell in this spot. Don't concede. Make him do it.
Yeah.
And you're going to be picking up information along the way as well. I mean, Steven's going to be discarding a lot of his deck, so you might see some weird one-ofs in his deck. You might see some counterspells of his own. This is all valuable information.
And whenever you're playing against combo deck, you know, one thing I learned is you make them go through it.
Yep.
Every single time. Make sure they know what they're doing. You can pick up information, as you did mention. They can make a mistake. That's certainly in play. There's a third Jeskai Ascendancy. Trigger, trigger, trigger. Whole bunch of triggers. Untap. Have a ball. As you mentioned, mana's not going to be the bottleneck. That's the least of the concerns at this point. But is Steven able to keep track of this all, as he doesn't even draw and discard there, so maybe he's got enough of what he's happy with.
Yeah, he may want to stop at a certain point drawing just out of concerns of decking.
Yeah.
It's also possible he forgot because there's 20,000 triggers in play right now. So, you know, whatever. We'll figure it out.
There's a Twin Flame. Well, that's going to be strived at least once, maybe twice. Looks like he's going to copy some QRS followers again, you have to imagine. Now, Jeff does have 3 blockers back on defense, and again, he does have Stubborn Denial in his hand. And now there is finally Stubborn Denial. He's going to have to pay 1 to cast it, but he's been sitting on it for some time, and this might be a good spot to cast it.
Well, this is the spot where Jeff has to draw the line because the second Twin Flame resolving represents lethal. At that point, Steven generates more tokens than Jeff has blockers, and even if he doesn't have some sort of combo kill, just by continuing to cast spells, he's going to generate a lethal attack. So even if Steven could probably still go off, you have to predict that if you're in Jeff's spot, but that's where he has to draw the line because the writing's on the wall at that point.
Now, the question here is, can he actually kill Jeff now? You know, I think that's what's interesting in this situation. Yeah, if he does find his Burning Anger, he's okay. And now there's Dragon's Mantle. I mean, he can keep going through his deck.
Yes.
That's not really much of a problem at this point.
I think he's out Twin Flames, right? That was the third copy.
I believe that's the case,
Because
yeah.
he made a carry added, he made 2 Kiyora's followers, and then the third one got countered.
Yep. So it's all on the Burning Anger to get the job done. You see he's going to make his way through the deck, and there is the 5 mana enchantment aura from M15. That's a unique way to go about winning the game, and now there it is. And just shrugging of the shoulders, and that is going to do it. So Steven Speck is going to win game number 1 here over Jeff Hoogland. Jeskai Ascendancy combo does take care of Teamer Monsters in the first game, as now it's time to go to the sideboards here, and we will start with Jeff, which you have in front of you.
A Kiora the Crashing Wave, a Lightning Strike, 3 copies of Force Away, 2 Reclamation Sages, 3 Disdainful Strokes, 3 Anger of the Gods, a Dig Through Time, a Stubborn Denial. 4th Stubborn Denial has got to come in here. 2 copies of Reclamation Sage, 3 copies of Anger of the Gods. I think those are all big upgrades for Jeff.
Now, one of the holes in this particular Ascendancy combo deck is they don't have a great sideboard. They never really have. 4 Swan Songs, well, that's the easy part, and I wouldn't be surprised to see those come in. But the 3 copies of Attraction Helix, 4 Magma Sprays, 2 Aether Spouts, and 2 copies of Chasm Skulker, not really all that exciting, at least in my opinion.
No, I think that I am happy to bring in the Swan Songs because if Jeff's interacting with you, it's going to, in a significant way, it's going to be spells. But the rest of this, I wouldn't touch. And as you mentioned, Steven has to be certain he wants cards in this matchup because it's very hard for him to find the space to sideboard.
Well, these players are going to go to the drawing board here and get ready for game number 2. Jeff will be on the play for that one. But while we do wait, we will talk about the chat being back here on SCG Live. You may have noticed that during the Players' Championship we made the initial announcement, but it is back here for 2015.
Now, it is back, but if you are not a subscriber, you are in slow mode, which means you can post only once every 2 minutes. If you subscribe for only $4.99 a month, you get access to custom chat, no slow mode, and custom emoticons and badges. Slow Play Turtle, Flying Penguin, Smiling Matthias, Exuberant Cedric, and just woefully disappointed me.
Your child, let's see. They already brought home a bad grade, but you found out that they don't have interest in your favorite sport. They don't like basketball.
No, that's okay. This is coal in the stocking me right here, which I am often like. So there you go.
Cole, just right in the stocking.
Just
Boom.
right in the stocking.
Get you some of that.
Which is an underrated gift because Cole has a lot of practical utility. So.
Oh, you're interested in the Cole market.
No, I mean, it's not exactly a growth market at this point.
Okay.
In, the history of human civilization. I'm just saying that there are worse things you can give someone than Cole.
Did you receive any nice gifts for Christmas?
Yeah, nice pair of headphones, a travel bag, which is very valuable for me.
Okay.
It was nice.
That's good. Gifts are fun.
Yep. You get anything sweet?
I don't do gifts. I don't want anything.
You didn't
I'm a
receive
Grush.
anything from the family unit?
No. Though I did get yelled at for calling my mom too late on Christmas Day.
Did you call? You did call on Christmas Day?
Yeah, it was like at 9 o'clock.
Okay.
I got yelled at for calling them on Christmas because it was too late.
I mean, as you
It's
mentioned before,
unbelievable.
no, I mean, if I called my house at 9 o'clock, I would not get an answer. So.
But my parents are awake at 9 o'clock. I know what they do every day.
They may or may not be awake at 9, but they wouldn't pick up the phone if I called at 9.
Oh, okay, fair enough.
So.
I know that my dad and my mom are watching some terrible show on HBO, or I don't know, a rerun of 24 or something. I know what you're doing. I know you're awake. Don't yell at me. I'm sorry.
How can you ask them to be pulled away from the gripping entertainment that is 24?
Yes, Jack Bauer. They got so close to killing him.
He's saving humanity or America or what, I don't know.
That is the worst show in the world.
Yeah, I've never watched it.
It's so bad.
I've
It
never
is so
watched
bad.
it.
And if anyone's going to go see the 24 movie, you should be ashamed of yourself. It's terrible.
I've never watched it, nor would I watch it.
You know what that means, by the way? Killed another sponsor right there. 24
Yeah.
will not be sponsoring the Open Series for 2015 or 2016, it seems. I watched season 1 of that show, and it was fine, but I was also like 14.
Right.
And then I learned my ways. Horrible show.
Yeah, there's no way I would ever watch anything
No.
like that. There's no chance.
Because there's a ceiling on how good it can be, because it's on Fox, so you can only do so much.
I don't necessarily buy into that. I think there's plenty of room for quality entertainment without having to go into the explicit territory. I just think that, action hero captured by the Chinese spy mission stuff just is always horrible. It's horrible 100% of the time.
Here's an elvish mystic off of a Yamamaya coast. A mystic monastery is how Speck will start things off. Shivan Reef is land number 2 here for Jeff. He's got to get off to an aggressive start, that's for sure.
Definitely. A problem in this matchup, now this is a great opening here.
Yes.
This is the pressure that he needs. Part of the problem is in this matchup is he doesn't have a lot of ways to get Ascendancy off the table if it resolves. He's got his 2 copies of Reclamation Sage, and even that might not be sufficient because he can die in the same turn that Ascendancy gets played.
Second Mystic Monastery there for Speck. There's land number 3 there for Jeff. But as you mentioned, this is the kind of draw he needs. It's just got to be unrelenting pressure always, and that's exactly what Goblin Rabble Master is. This game could be over before it even begins.
Not only is this an awesome start on the surface, but he has Crater's Claws in hand, so there's a really good chance that this just leads to a kill next turn because he's going to have Ferocious enabled, Hoogland Rabble Master, and now the Savage Knuckleblade.
And I love the Knuckleblade coming down here too, because even though he doesn't have the red mana to give it haste, this situation where Speck played a land and Anger of the Gods, it would be a big problem, but he'll have a 4/4 left over, will Jeff, if that were the case.
It's a very nice hedge here. And Jeff has to respect the possibility. Steven does not have it in the sideboard, but sometimes they do.
Yeah, and Jeff shows him the Crater's Claws, and he says, yeah, this was the best possible draw I could have in this matchup. Turn 2, Realm Master. Turn 3, Knuckleblade. Let's get this over with and head to a third game. And just like that, that's exactly what we're going to be doing.
Yeah, that's the start right there. The turn 2 Rabble Master. Steven, without a copy of Sylvan Caryatid, just no shot in that game. It's all over too fast. And no Anger of the Gods, too.
Well, I guess we're going to be heading to game number 3 here in just a moment. Jeff tying things up with Team of Monsters, a deck that he played at the Players' Championship. Did not have a lot of success playing it there, unfortunately, but again, he's been a big fan of this archetype, as has Brian Kibler. Don't know if this deck needs some sort of shot in the arm, or if it just needs more massaging on trying to figure out the best way to go about building it.
Well, I think it is an aggressive deck, and it has probably the most taxing mana of any of the aggressive shells in terms of the wedges. Once you're playing something like Mardu, you're not trying to cast Elvish Mystic or really anything else on turn 1. So you have a lot more wiggle room for the types of lands that you play and the types of threats that you're playing. This deck, because it's trying to cast Savage Knuckleblade, has really specific mana requirements. And I think the deck loses to that more than anything else. Put it another way, Bloodstained Mire is a much more effective mana fixer for Mardu than Wooded Foothills is for Temur. Because of the mana requirements.
You see the 5 next to Jeff's name. He is number 5 on our Season 1 leaderboard for 2015. Yes, it is 2015. Happy New Year to everyone that is watching. And what that means is that he had 2 buys coming in this tournament. We'll see here on our leaderboard to kick off 2015, the players who are coming in with 2 buys. Kevin Jones leading the pack.
And a lot of these players in the house today, Kevin Jones, Jim Davis, Jeff Hoogland, Joe Lissette, all here. All these players will have 2 buys, at least through Season 1, unless standings shift because of people's performance in the Open Series and IQs.
You can see the second page here, 9 through 16 as well. Logan Mize in attendance, Jessup, Brad Nelson, Fabiano is here, Tenjim I think is here, Todd Anderson, Stephen Mann is here, and Andrew Boswell as well. So again, with the new setup for the Open Series for 2015, if you are 1st through 16th on our leaderboard, you'll have 2 buys at all of these tournaments. No more buys at invitationals. 17th through 32nd, we'll have 1 buy. And you can earn buys at open trials as well, which are pretty important because these events are going to be big. We're looking at close to 700 players here for this particular tournament in Columbus.
A lot of money at stake, and making day 2 is so valuable, and the performance becomes so much easier with 2 buys. I think there's a sleeper candidate on that board for the Players' Championship this year. I think the Boz is going to make a run.
The Boz tried to make a run last time. He came close too.
But he wasn't really trying through the first half of the season.
Yeah.
He sort of picked up steam in quarters 3 and 4. I think with a full commitment, we're going to see him in the Players' Championship.
And truth be told, coming into this room, I'm from the area, so I know I know a lot of the players I'm going to see here. A player like Joe Bernal lives in the Chicago area, so I'm not surprised to see him make the drive over for this when we come to India or what have you. But I didn't expect to see Logan Mize, Stephen Mann, Joe Lissette.
Yeah, I saw Stephen in between rounds here, and I said, "You guys fly out for this?" He's like, "Yep, we really like our deck."
Fair enough.
Yeah, so very cool.
Yeah, I know those guys do want to qualify for the Players' Championship again. And given the points in the rollover and what great years they had and those points staying with them, this is an opportunity for them to take the shot to do that. And some players opt to just kind of take the weekend off. Roanoke's not too far from here, so that means a player like Brad Nelson, Todd Anderson, Van Meter, Braun, those guys opted not to come to this, maybe playing an IQ or something and stay at home. And some players looking to take advantage, get a lot of points this weekend.
Oh, for sure. And also, it's just even setting aside the Players' Championship implications, this is just a large, valuable tournament to be playing in its own right.
Yeah. First place, $5,000. No joke. Perhaps one of these players will be taking it home with them. Both off to great starts here, starting off at 3-0. Got 9 rounds today, of course 6 tomorrow, and we'll cut to a top 8. We'll work our way through elimination rounds and crown that champion and give away $5,000. Can't forget about the 2 5Ks tomorrow as well.
Yep, Modern and Legacy.
Steven Speck will be on the plate here for game number 3 against Jeff Hoogland. It's NSC combo against Temur Monsters. Nice diversity here this weekend too. Not much of a surprise given the standard format, but this is 2 more different decks that we have not seen so far.
I feel like we've seen at least 5 or 6 decks so far through our 4 rounds.
Yeah.
And the Ascendancy combo deck, not necessarily something you would have anticipated, but with people moving to those little sweepers like Drowned Sorrow, Two-Way Giant, makes a lot of sense to try to lean on Caryatid.
Well, Speck had a great draw in game 1. Jeff had a great draw in game 2, and now Speck's going to have to send it back. Something that this deck does quite a bit, unfortunately.
Well, there is a lot of nonsense going on here, though less than the average Ascendancy combo deck, because you have Divination at least. You have a little bit more stabilization, but it's nice to see this deck get away from the Briber's Pursed builds of the deck that have just dead draws until you're going off.
Yeah.
I think combo deck 101 is cut all the cards that are only significant once you're going off. Like, everything should have utility in its own right. So everything here is a cantrip. I guess Twin Flame is the closest thing to really only functional when you're going off.
Yeah, that and the Singleton Burning Anger, but it's fine to have, a 1 card that's just a win condition. And I suppose there are situations that present itself where Burning Anger can be used as a kind of creative removal spell or something.
And there is an issue, of you are able to loot away your 1 Burning Anger and still win the game through Twin Flame, which is also significant, If you're going off through Ascendancy anyway, you can afford a little bit of dead weight because you can loot away your pieces and still find something to eventually kill your opponent with.
I know a lot of players are kind of on the lookout for the new cards in Fate Reforged to see what's going to help certain decks. Soulfire Grandmaster certainly going to help out Jeskai Token. Same can be said likely for Monastery Mentor, or perhaps those cards breed brand new archetypes. This might be on someone's back burner. What's the card that people are looking for this Jeskai Ascendancy combo deck, this particular take on the deck.
Any quality cantrip is already going to be fine. I mean, Defiant Strike's one of the better cards in this deck, and Defiant Strike isn't even particularly good.
Mystic Monastery to start here for Speck. For Jeff, it's the same thing, you have to imagine. Just got to get off to a really, really fast start. Probably involves Rebel Master. Doesn't have to, but he just wants to get off to a quick start here. Temple of Mystery, not the fastest start. No acceleration on turn one, though. Can't smooth out the draw a little bit.
And I believe a Stubborn Denial already in Jeff's hand. That's a really valuable tool if he can get to that in conjunction with a 4-power creature.
Top card goes to the bottom. We're heading Speck's way. 2 mana. And it's time for a Kiora's Follower. He'll have to take one to cast it. We'll go back to Jeff. Jeff will draw. Picked up a copy of what looks like Wooded Foothills.
I'm interested to see Steven leave off with the Kiora's Follows here rather than the Caryatid. I think he might be saying, I'm happy if Jeff trades his second turn here with his Kiora's Followers.
Oh, there's a land. 3 mana. There's Divination. Jeff looking at his hand. That's going to resolve. So 2 cards coming here for Speck. Divination kind of the glue that holds this one together.
It's good when you're going off, and it's also just good doing its thing.
Lightning Strike will take care of Kiora's Follower. So go back Jeff's way.
Now that's a big giveaway because Steven was clearly conscious of Stubborn Denial last turn.
Yeah.
And the fact that he let him untap with a Kiora's Followers and then kill it in a turn means that there has to be some sort of counterspell. Maybe it's negate or something else, you know, but there's definitely something going on with Jeff's hand right now.
Time to search for a forest, and here comes the Courser. We'll see the top card of Jeff's deck in just a moment, but that'll be his entire turn. As now he's going to build or at least try to build, a small incremental advantage over the course of the next couple of turns.
But this is not exactly where Jeff wants to be, as we saw last game. His hands that are absent of much pressure give Steven a lot of time to work around things. His hands that put a lot of pressure, as we saw, might result in a turn 3 concession.
Well, here's a Chasm Skulker. And Jeff's going to take a look at that. We will certainly do the same. A very interesting sideboard card for this deck, given that its ability to just see so many cards. Frontier Bivouac and a passing of the turn. 3 mana 1/1 to start, so of course that's not all that impressive. When you draw a card, you put a +1/+1 counter on the Skulker, and when it dies, it kind of splits into smaller creatures. And they do have Island Walk, which, taking a look at Jeff's deck list, do want to see if that plays a role.
There are 0 islands.
Okay.
There's no fetch land that can get an island available to him. So.
Sure, no Misty.
Right.
No Scalding Tarn.
So yeah, 2 mountains, 2 forests as basics, and then blue duels to glue together the blue cards.
Well, here comes the Courser. That'll serve him.
I am skeptical of Chasm Skulker in this matchup here, because Jeff's deck has so many ways to just shove that aside, you know?
It doesn't really care about that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Wooded Foothills going to get sacrificed. Disdainful Stroke's going to get shuffled away. That was the top card for the Courser. Mountain going to come in, trigger the Courser, of course, so stay at the same life total here.
I mean, Jeff even went ahead and flashed a Crater's Claws at the end of last game. I mean, he's got a lot of answers to creatures like this.
So we'll see what the top card is for Courser in just a moment. And it is a copy of Shivan Reef. And now that exciting. Looks like Jeff might be flooding out a little bit here.
He looks a little light on action. He's got a Storm Breath, but not a lot besides that.
3 mana. Anger of the Gods. Not the prettiest exchange, but gets the job done, gets that thing off the table.
I mean, if Jeff wants to follow up here with the Elvish Mystic, he doesn't really have a choice.
Yeah.
So yeah, not pretty, but whatever. Also, Jeff's deck is not great at handling one large threat. And all Steven has to do is really go untap, draw a card, cast Divination, and all of a sudden that creature's really problematic.
Yeah, there's some real trouble there. Jeskai Ascendancy to draw. He's got 2 of those in hand now. See if he wants to deploy one of them or not. And that's the question right now for Speck. He's going to start by deploying Sylvan Caryatid and just pass the turn back. So Jeff burned his Anger of the Gods to take care of that. Pelucranos is the top card of the deck now.
But Jeff can't untap fast enough because this gets him in a position now where he can cast Stormbreath Dragon and leave up a blue for Stubborn Denial. So he's got a clock and a hard counter.
It looks like he's just going to serve in for 3 points of damage here. So perhaps no Stormbreath in hand at this point. There's the Reef. Going to trigger, gain some life. And just pass the turn back. Three mana, perhaps it's Ascendancy time. Divination first. 2 cards coming here for Steven.
I mean, Steven, at this point, has a lot of time and wiggle room to play with. He's in no rush to deploy the Ascendancy.
There's Kyora's Follower. There is a Mystic Monastery. We're heading back Jeff's way. Pelucranos the draw, top card. Manic Influence. I'm going to put that in play, get his free card. Trigger, gain a little bit of life. Savage Knuckleblade on top of the deck. That can be a hasty threat of the next turn. But here comes the Courser. So quite clearly no Stormbreath Dragon in Jeff's hand right now. Though the combination of Pelucranos plus Stubborn Denial does mean you just have a hard counter available.
Yeah, this is a good start here. You now got a little bit of protection.
Speck will draw. It's a copy of Sylvan Caryatid. 3 mana. This is an attempt at Jeskai Ascendancy, and that can't be Stubborn Denial fast enough if you're Jeff. He'll have to take 1 to counter it, but that's going to work just fine. However, it looks like Steven may have a follow-up here and another Jeskai Ascendancy. He'll have to take a little bit of damage to cast it, it seems. But he will. And now, it's a Retraction Helix. And perhaps it's time for a little bit of fun. So untap, draw, discard. There that goes. So Sylvan Caryatid has that on it right now. Not entirely sure if he can go off in this instance, but he does get some looks. So
He gets a lot of looks, though.
Yeah. So he'll draw and discard and now resolve the commune. So take a look. 2, 3, looking for Dragon's Mantle. Though Twin Flame's not bad. Though he can't take that one with him. So I'll have to take Jeskai Ascendancy. Those cards will all go to the graveyard. And the hand right now for Speck, Ascendancy, and Caryatid.
I mean, if he can get a second Ascendancy into play at this spot, it matters a lot, too, because then he gets 2 untaps per spell, which adds a lot with the Retraction Helix.
Yeah.
But it looks like he's just going to set Jeff back a little bit and try to go for it next turn.
Yep. So he made him pick up the Courser and the Pelucranos before passing the turn back. So I just got to try to rebuild. The problem here is that Speck has so much life. 13 is quite a bit in this situation.
And Jeff's deck, you know, he does have Knuckleblade in hand. He has Stormbreath in his deck as well, but he just doesn't have a lot of ways to generate a bunch of haste from this spot. And he needs to close out the game quickly, because if he can't get the Ascendancy off the table, he does not have very much time.
Well, he's reaching for some mana. The question is what he's want to deploy. And we know he's going to draw Savage Knuckleblade for the turn, and you feel though he has to continue to get aggressive. Or at least try to. There is Nux.
I think he's got to start with giving this haste and getting in for 4 while he can. Because that sets him up for, you know, if he's able to get out of this turn somehow, then something like Critter's Claws could be a lethal draw.
This is the last call for Suns for the Modern Challenge. Again, last call for Suns for the Modern Challenge.
What he does after this point, Pelucranos is a fine play, but the most important thing is getting in for 4 this turn.
Yeah, and try to present lethal next turn, which is what he's going to do. Also, Pelucranos' decks does have, it matters a little bit. You know, the fact that it can go monstrous and do some stuff matters a little bit here. As now, here is Jeskai Ascendancy, trigger.
And I don't think Steven has another spell in hand right now, so if he misses here...
Which he just did. As you see, Jeff says, I pressed F6, which in Magic Online lingo means that he has no responses.
Do whatever it is you're going to do.
Yep. All right.
All right, well, it's still a question about whether or not Jeff can present lethal and then survive next turn. You know, he's not out of the woods yet, but
Yeah, the tough spot here is I think that Steven has to block twice, or block both creatures, potentially.
depends what Jeff does. But Steven might just say, I'm not playing around any sort of burn spell.
There's a land. Of course, you can only activate Knuckleblade once, so that represents 6 points of damage. So we'll see how much Jeff can deal here.
Jeff has 2 Knuckleblade activations afforded to him.
Well, you can only activate it once per turn.
Oh.
The +2/+2.
Oh, okay.
So I think that's probably the hiccup here, is that Speck can likely just say, okay, Knuckleblade can come through. That's fine. You can put me down to 2. I can block your Pelucranos with my Kiora's follower, and still have the ability to, you know, win this game. You know, if he draws a spell and things break appropriately.
Yeah. Like, he's not beating a burn spell from this spot, most likely, but if Jeff's thinking this long, he probably doesn't have it.
There's a bunch of mana. Feels like a monstrosity activation. This would be 9 mana total. Yep. And that's going to get that off the table. Well, add some mana to carry at it and then untap it. Don't think he'll be using it, though. So here come the attackers. Yep, you just have to block that one. And you still have the ability to kind of do your thing here.
2 copies of Ascendancy in play, plus a carry added.
Yep, F6 again. Draw. Needs to be a spell to get it started. Don't have a great look at it. I don't think it's a spell. Looks like it's just a couple of lands, and that is going to do it. Jeff Hoogland's going to dodge the bullet and get the job done. Teamer Monsters will take care of Steven Speck and his Ascendancy combo deck, and that means that Jeff is going to move on to 4-0. Great start for him today.
Yeah, he had to dodge a lot of draws there, both on the previous turn and that turn, and most likely the turn previous.
Yeah.
Able to dodge them all and able to squeak out of this round.